The sun was dipping low over Willow Creek, painting the sky in soft pinks and oranges. The small town hummed with its usual rhythm. Kids on bikes weaving down Main Street, the faint jingle of bells from the bakery door, and the earthy scent of pine drifting through the air. At the Rusty Spoon, a cozy cafe with red-checkered tablecloths and chairs that didn't quite match, Claire Bennett sat at a corner table, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her chamomile tea. Her dark curls were swept into a loose bun, a few strands falling around her face, and her hazel eyes flickered toward the door every few seconds. At 32, Claire hadn't been on a date in years. Not since her husband walked out, leaving her to raise their 2 kids, Emma and Noah, alone. Her navy dress, the nicest one she owned, felt unfamiliar, like it belonged to a version of herself she'd almost forgotten. Leela, her best friend since high school, had pushed her into this blind date. "You're more than just a mom, Claire," Leela had said over coffee a week ago, her voice firm but warm. "You deserve to feel alive again," Claire had argued. She was too busy, too tired, her life too full of school runs, grocery lists, and late night shifts at Willow Creek's only grocery store. Emma was 5, full of questions and obsessed with dinosaurs. Noah was 3, a whirlwind of energy who left a trail of toys wherever he went. Dating felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. But Leela was stubborn. And now here Claire was, waiting for a man named James, her stomach fluttering with nerves she hadn't felt since her 20s. Across town, James Harper sat in his black SUV, parked outside the lakeside cabin his family had owned for decades. At 38, he was the founder of Harper Tech, a company that had reshaped cloud computing and made him a billionaire before he hit 30. His life was a blur of boardrooms, private jets, and high-stakes deals, but Willow Creek was his sanctuary. He'd spent childhood summers here, fishing with his dad, running through the woods, feeling free in a way the city never allowed. His college friend, Tom, had set up this date, insisting James needed to meet someone real. James wasn't convinced. His relationships never lasted, always fading under the weight of his schedule or the polished women who seemed more interested in his wealth than his heart. Still, Tom's enthusiasm was hard to ignore, and Claire, whoever she was, had piqued his curiosity. James adjusted his tie, then loosened it, swapping his suit jacket for a sweater. He didn't want to come off as the city hotshot. Tom had described Claire as kind, smart, with a laugh that could light up a room. James stepped out of the SUV, the gravel crunching under his shoes, and headed toward the Rusty Spoon, the cool autumn air brushing against his face. Inside the cafe, the bell above the door jingled, and Claire's head snapped up. James walked in, tall and broad-shouldered, his dark hair neatly trimmed, his grey eyes scanning the room. Their gazes met, and Claire managed a shy smile, her heart thudding so loud she was sure he could hear it. He crossed the room, his steps steady but not rushed, and extended a hand. "Claire, I'm James," he said, his voice warm, with a faint city accent that felt both foreign and comforting in the small town cafe. "Hi," she replied, shaking his hand. Her palm was clammy, and she winced internally, hoping he didn't notice. "Nice to meet you." They sat, and the conversation started like a slow dance, tentative at first. James asked about her favorite books. She loved mysteries, the kind with clever twists that kept her guessing. Claire asked about his work, and he waved it off with a chuckle. "Just tech stuff," he said, "not as exciting as it sounds." His easy smile put her at ease, and she found herself relaxing, her nerves softening as they talked about small things. The weather, the cafe's famous apple pie, the way Willow Creek seemed to freeze time in the best way. But beneath her calm, Claire's mind was racing. She hadn't told him about Emma and Noah. Leela had warned her not to lead with it. "Let him see you first." Not just the mom part, she'd said. But the omission felt like a lie. Claire wasn't just a woman on a date. She was a single mom. Her life shaped by school pickups, bedtime stories, and the constant juggle of making ends meet. She sipped her tea, her fingers tight around the mug, wondering how to bring it up without scaring him off. The date stretched into 2 hours, the cafe's warm lights casting a golden glow over their table. James was different from what Claire had expected. He wasn't flashy. Despite the tailored jacket and the quiet confidence that hinted at his wealth, he told her about his summers in Willow Creek, how he'd build forts in the woods, how his dad taught him to cast a fishing line. Claire shared her own stories, growing up in a nearby town, sneaking into the library to read novels she couldn't afford to buy, her love for painting that had faded when motherhood took over. James listened, his eyes steady, his laugh soft when she described burning her first attempt at baking cookies. "I'm glad Tom set this up," James said, leaning back in his chair, his voice low. "You're easy to talk to, Claire." Her cheeks warmed, and she tucked a curl behind her ear. "You too," she said, then hesitated. The truth pressed against her chest, heavy and urgent. She took a deep breath, her fingers twisting the napkin in her lap. "James, I need to tell you something. I have 2 kids. Emma's 5, and Noah's 3. I'm a single mom." She braced herself, expecting his smile to fade, his eyes to shift with the polite distance she'd seen from others. But James just nodded, his expression unchanged, his grey eyes steady. "Okay," he said simply. "That's a lot of love in your life." Claire blinked, caught off guard. "You're not surprised?" He chuckled, a soft sound that eased the tension in her shoulders. "A little. But it's not a deal-breaker, Claire." "Tell me about them." Her heart softened, and she found herself talking about Emma's love for dinosaurs, how she'd name every toy after a different species, about Noah's endless questions, like why clouds moved or why grass was green. She told him about the time Noah painted the kitchen wall with yogurt, and James laughed, a real laugh that made his eyes crinkle. When they parted ways, he asked to see her again, and Claire said yes, her smile brighter than it had been in years. Over the next few weeks, James became a quiet thread in Claire's life. He'd text her in the mornings, simple messages like, "Hope your day's off to a good start," or "Any new dinosaur facts from Emma?" He'd stop by the grocery store during her shifts, bringing her a coffee or a small toy for the kids, a plastic triceratops for Emma, a squishy ball for Noah. Claire was cautious, her heart guarded from years of disappointment, but James was patient, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. One Saturday, he met Emma and Noah at the park. Claire watched, her stomach in knots, as Emma shyly showed him her rock collection, pointing out the ones she thought looked like fossils. Noah, fearless as ever, tugged at James's hand, demanding to be pushed on the swing. James knelt to their level, his sweater sleeves rolled up, his laugh echoing across the playground as he pushed Noah higher and higher. Claire stood by the bench, her arms crossed, her heart a tangle of hope and fear. The kids were her world, and she couldn't let them get attached to someone who might leave. That evening, after the kids were asleep, James came over to Claire's small apartment. It was modest, with crayon drawings taped to the fridge, a worn couch, and toys scattered across the floor. They sat with a bowl of popcorn between them, the TV playing a muted movie neither of them watched. James said, his voice soft, "I like this. Being here, with you. With Emma and Noah. It's different. Good different." She looked at him, her throat tight. "It's not easy, James. Being with me means being with them. It's a lot, messy, loud, sometimes overwhelming." "I know," he said, his hand brushing hers, his touch warm and steady. "I'm not scared off." I want to try. But Claire wanted to believe him, but doubt lingered like a shadow. He was a billionaire, used to a life of freedom, of boardrooms and late-night flights. Could he really fit into her world of spilled juice and bedtime tantrums? She looked away, her fingers tracing the seam of the couch, her heart wrestling with the hope he stirred. Autumn deepened, and Willow Creek's Harvest Festival filled the town square with hayrides, pumpkin carving, and the sweet smell of cider. Claire brought Emma and Noah, their faces painted like a cat and a tiger, their laughter ringing through the crowd. James joined them, surprising Claire with a soft blue scarf from a local vendor, its color matching her eyes. They wandered the festival as a group, James carrying Noah on his shoulders when the boy's legs tired, helping Emma carve a pumpkin that ended up more wobbly than round. Claire watched, her heart swelling, but the fear lingered. The kids were falling for him, and so was she. As the festival wound down, they sat on a bench, the kids chasing fireflies in the fading light. Claire turned to James, her voice low, barely audible over the distant music. James, I need to know you're in this for real. Emma and Noah, they're starting to love you. If you're not sure, it's better to walk away now, before they get hurt. But James looked at her, his grey eyes steady, reflecting the soft glow of the festival lights. Claire, I've spent years chasing things. Money, success, deals that felt like the world. But this, he gestured to the kids, to her, his voice softening. This feels like home. I'm not going anywhere. Her eyes stung, and she blinked back tears, looking out at the kids to steady herself. I want to believe you, she whispered. Then let me show you, he said, his voice gentle but firm, his hand finding hers. Winter settled over Willow Creek, blanketing the town in snow. Claire's life didn't change overnight. There were still bills to pay, tantrums to soothe, shifts to cover at the store. But James was there, a quiet constant. He'd read to the kids when Claire was bone-tired, his voice steady as he narrated stories about dragons and pirates. He fixed the leaky faucet in her kitchen, laughing when it sprayed him, and sat with her after bedtime, talking about nothing and everything. He didn't try to fix her life with his money, though he offered small gestures. A new winter coat for Emma, a toy train set for Noah, a dinner at a restaurant Claire could never afford on her own. One snowy evening, as they decorated a small Christmas tree in Claire's living room, Noah tugged at James's sleeve. Are you going to be our dad? He asked, his voice small but clear, his big eyes searching. Claire froze, her heart in her throat, a string of tinsel dangling from her hand. James knelt down, his smile soft, his sweater dusted with glitter from the ornaments. I'd like to be around for a long time, buddy, he said. Is that okay with you? Noah nodded, his tiger-painted face breaking into a grin, and ran off to grab another ornament. Claire met James's eyes, her breath shaky. You handled that well, she said, her voice barely steady. I meant it, he replied, stepping closer, his voice low. Kaya, I'm all in. You, Emma? No. You're my family now, if you'll have me. She reached for his hand, her fingers intertwining with his, the warmth of his touch melting the last of her doubts. We'd like that, she said, her voice trembling with hope. Spring arrived, painting Willow Creek in shades of green. James rented a house in town, a cozy place with a big backyard, closer to Claire's apartment. He started working remotely, trading conference calls for picnics with Emma and Noah. The kids called him Jamesy, their laughter filling the quiet moments. Claire's heart grew lighter, the weight of years alone lifting with every small gesture. James braiding Emma's hair, teaching Noah to catch a ball, sitting with Claire on the porch as the stars came out. The townsfolk noticed, their whispers turning to warm nods. Leela teased Claire about her fancy man, but her eyes shone with pride. The rusty spoon kept a table ready for them, where they'd sit as a family, sharing fries and stories, Emma drawing dinosaurs on napkins, Noah giggling over his milkshake. One warm spring evening, James took Claire and the kids to the lakeside cabin. He'd set up a picnic by the water, a blanket spread with sandwiches and lemonade. Emma and Noah ran along the shore, splashing and laughing, while Claire and James sat side by side, the sun setting in a blaze of gold. "I never thought I'd find this," Claire said, her voice soft, her eyes on the kids. "Someone who sees us, all of us, and stays." James turned to her, his hand finding hers. "I never thought I'd find a place that feels like home," he said. "You gave me that, Claire. You and the kids." She leaned against him, her head on his shoulder, the world quiet except for the sound of Emma's laughter and Noah's squeals. For the first time, Claire let herself believe in a future where love wasn't a risk, but a promise kept. Years later, Willow Creek would tell their story. A single mom who dared to hope, a billionaire who found his heart in a small town, and two kids who taught them both what family really meant. It wasn't a story of grand gestures or wealth, but of quiet moments, shared laughter, steady hands, and the kind of love that grew slowly, like a tree taking root, strong enough to weather any storm.